Good morning, bookworms. Happy Sunday. And thank you so much for joining me for this month's recap of June's book of the month, Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. This is actually my third time reading this book since I discovered it back in 2016. And when I tell y'all, each time I read this book, I learn something new and it just hits so different. So the underlying theme of this book is discipline, self-discipline. It's such a simple word, but so many of us have such a hard time leaning into that concept. And it's not just discipline in your behavior, but it's discipline in your mindset and discipline in the company that you keep and the things that you allow to feed your soul. Once you master these places and these areas of discipline, it can be transformative. So let's start from the beginning and let's break everything down. Hey constituents, I hope you're enjoying the show so far. This episode is sponsored by Ramsey Family Marketplace, a Black-owned grocery store selling healthy and organic products from chefs, artisans, and small businesses owned by people of color. Hit the link in the description box to grab your snacks. Now back to the show. So the story begins with the narrator, Napoleon Hill, describing his first encounter with the other self. The idea of the other self is this moment in life where life forces you to tap into this energy, this unknown energy that you've never experienced before in order to think and work your way out of a difficult situation. The key takeaways from the first 3 chapters of the book are, number 1, the concept of the other self and recognizing the moment in your situation and in your life where that other self kicks in. You learn how to recognize and to listen to that other self. And lastly, how to allow your mind, once taken over by the other self, to guide you when logically the guidance that you were receiving from this other self does not really seem to make sense. The other self comes to you in the form of ideas that will allow you to create an action plan that will ultimately guide you out of a difficult situation. And the second takeaway is the idea that every defeat brings with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. So opportunity often comes disguised in misfortune or temporary defeat. Unfortunately, 98% of people in this world cannot distinguish the difference between failure and temporary defeat. And because in our lives we experience so often so many setbacks, eventually it becomes easier to accept the defeats as failures. And you accept the space that you're in and you lose all hope of getting back up. And it's just let me just stay here. This obviously, that level of greatness wasn't meant to be for me. But listen, the only distinguishing quality from the 98% of people in this world and the 2% who achieve legendary status, y'all know I love Talks of Legends, is that they didn't give up. They didn't lean into the idea of failure. They only accept those setbacks as temporary defeat. In fact, legends know that failure doesn't even exist. They understand that every setback brings with it the seed of an equal or greater opportunity for success. And then the third most important concept in the first 3 chapters of this book is the idea that faith is the beginning of all great achievement. Faith is your approach to infinite intelligence. The other self is a faith-based concept, because tapping into your other self means that you're tapping into a space that is not of this world. It requires you to think and move in a way that you never have before, and that action starts with faith. You know, JLX said in his verse with that record with Chance the Rapper, he goes, faith the size of a mustard seed is all I needed to sow this dream. And that's real. You don't have to have this large level of faith because life is scary, especially when you're trying to achieve greatness, period. It's scary. But all you need is in the Bible. All you need is faith the size of a teeny tiny mustard seed to get that dream started. That's why the Bible it says walk by faith and not by sight, because some things require a vision that is beyond what the human mind and the human eye can conceive. In the next section of this book, we are set up to witness an actual interview between Napoleon Hill and the devil himself. The section starts off by explaining that by some way Napoleon Hill has managed to take hold of the devil and lock him in this room and sit him down and force him to confess how he manages to control 98% the minds of 98% of people in this world. The deal he has with the devil is that he must truthfully answer every question that Hill asks him and explain it in a way that is comprehensible. And the deal he has with the devil is that he must truthfully answer every question that Hill asks of him and explain the idea behind his ultimate control of 98% of the people in this world, and explain how 2% of those people have managed to loosen the grip that the devil has on their mind, or to never fall victim of his control in the first place. So that's where the interview begins. He first talks about the concept of habits and refers to those who fall into the flow of bad habits and bad decision making as drifters. Drifters are people who at some point in their lives stop living life in the sense that they are in control of their own destinies and just allow life to happen to them. Then they develop this thing called hypnotic rhythm. Hey constituents, I hope you're enjoying the show so far. This episode is sponsored by Ramsey Family Marketplace, a Black-owned grocery store selling healthy and organic products from chefs, artisans, and small businesses owned by people of color. Hit the link in the description box to grab your snacks. Now back to the show. So the best way to explain hypnotic rhythm is to compare it to how a person learns how to play music. It starts with memorizing a melody or thoughts in the mind in this case, and by repeating the rhythm and melody over and over and over again, it becomes embedded in the mind. Any impulse of thought that the mind repeats over and over again through habit, it forms an organized rhythm. Then that habit cannot be broken because nature takes over and makes it permanent. So this is the idea of hypnotic rhythm. And drifters are people who ultimately allow that hypnotic rhythm to be a pattern of self-sabotaging thoughts and self-sabotaging behaviors. Some of the characteristics of drifters that he gave in the book are people who have an opinion on everything but no accurate knowledge of anything. So you know those people who, if you have an opinion or if you're in the middle of a conversation, somebody will jump into that conversation and start giving you and everybody that's in the conversation their opinion, but without having done the research to support the opinions that they're stating. You see this a lot in political talk, or at least I do, because in a lot of the circles that I'm in nowadays, politics seems to be the thought. Another characteristic of a drifter is someone who will never accomplish anything requiring thought or effort. So, you see some people who are seem to be content with just the bare minimum in life. And you know that probably is something that like greatness is something that individual may never achieve because it's just not something that they aspire to. It's just not something that they have the desire for. Another characteristic is that the person will be ill-tempered and lacking control of his or her emotions. We talk a lot from the book series that we read over the course of this year so far, emotional intelligence. That even can disrupt the balance of people within a relationship. We talked about that during the recap of Queen Afua's Sacred Woman, as well as David Deidre's The Way of the Superior Man. This idea of having self-control over your thoughts and your emotions. It's so funny. My best friend is a therapist, and she gave me this scenario one time when we were discussing the idea of emotional intelligence and emotional control. And she said, picture yourself on an elephant in the middle of, a safari or whatever, and you're riding the elephant. Who is in control? You or the elephant, meaning your emotions? So here you have this great big being that seems so much bigger and so much grander than what you are. And when she asked me that question, I immediately said, the elephant, but that's not the right answer. At no point should that elephant, meaning your emotions, be the one that takes control of you in any given situation. It's your job to steer that elephant in the way that it should go. And that's how that concept is how you master emotional intelligence. Because our emotions sometimes seem so much bigger and grander than, little old me, little old you. because emotions feel so big, they're so powerful. But the idea of, or the idea that good leaders are able to master is the concept that you control those emotions. Those emotions don't control you. Another characteristic of a drifter is that he will make the same mistake over and over again and never profit from the failure. We all know the saying, like, you learn from your lessons. You learn from your mistakes. There's a lesson in every mistake and every failure. People who fall into this drifter category and mindset are never able to learn from their mistakes. It's like the saying, insanity, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and accepting a different result. These are those people who believe that you can continue to do the same thing in life, the same thing over and over again, and expect things to change. It's insanity, and that's a characteristic of a drifter, someone who is never able to lean into the idea of learning from mistakes and changing, behavior patterns in order to get better and in order to advance and elevate, not just like mentally, but also just in life in general. Another characteristic from the book of a drifter is that he will be loud in his condemnation of the government, but he will never be able to identify how it can be improved. Now, people like that we see a lot, especially on social media. Y'all are drifters. Anyone who can have the audacity to be so rah-rah about what's going on in the government, but doesn't take the time to even educate themselves to understand. For instance, you talking about gentrification, like that's a Joe Biden problem, because you haven't done the work to educate yourself to understand that that's a state and local problem. So these are the main characteristics from the book of drifters. And the devil in the book talks about how he captures the minds of people from such a young age through fear. The fear that your parents put into you, the fear sometimes that church officials put into you, the fear of going to hell, the fear of being too ambitious, and that being a sign of evil. People love to throw around that money. The love of money is the root of all evil, but negating the fact that the key word in that is the love of money. A lot of religious people will try to tell you that that ambition and reaching great heights is something that's wrong, but it's not. It's the love of those things that shift who you are and that can ultimately make you a self-sabotaging person. But we live in a world where we are all God's children. God never wants us to be poor. He wants us to live in abundance. He wants us to have the promises that He set for us in our lives. Fear of poverty is another thing. You'll notice that a lot of the times when you grow up in a certain area, it becomes hard to, especially if that area is impoverished, it becomes hard for those individuals to get themselves out of that. Because when you're constantly surrounded by people who have that same mindset, you're never going to be able to breathe. You're being suffocated by the same ideas and the same thing. You see it out your window. You see it in your home. You see it in your family. And it's like nobody's giving you that extra push or motivation that you need to dream your way out of that. That's how drifting begins, even before you have a chance to get yourself out of it. People sometimes can be born into drifting situations. And the fear of failure when it comes to when you're in those situations, when you're in that environment, the fear of failure becomes so paralyzing that it's like, I can't dream big. This is what I am. This is what I'm meant to be. If God intended for me to be more, He would have let me be born into a different situation. Drifters are people that kind of lean into that mindset and never grow out of that as life goes on, whether it be lack of experiences or lack of taking the time to educate yourself or get yourself in new situations. And it's hard. That's the reality of the situation. It's hard. It's hard, especially when you're born into situations like that, to dream big enough to get yourself out of it. But that's why the 2% of this world, the 2% of people in this world have managed to grasp their minds back from the devil and to not be drifters and to use hypnotic rhythm to their advantage. The beautiful thing in life is that these negative characteristics can be reversed. Because remember, with every defeat, every bad habit, every poor decision, there lies on the other side of that the seed of opportunity. Definiteness of purpose and self-discipline are the key principles of breaking the devil's hold over your mind. Just as one can get in the rhythm of bad habits and poor decision making, you can also apply these things in the reverse. And the first step of that is definiteness of purpose, or as we call it today, intention. Moving with intention, developing a life that is full of intention. The same way that the devil uses the hypnotic rhythm to develop and amplify negative habits, the opposition to the devil, we call him God or the light, he offers the equivalency of that negative and the good, if that makes sense. By simply reversing the negative and replacing it with things like healthy eating habits, positive affirmations daily to counteract negative thinking. It's so funny. I was listening to T.D. Jakes yesterday, and he made a key point. He said, you fight word with word. You fight those negative thoughts with word, like the Bible. You fight negative words with word. And I found that so powerful. I wrote that down in my journal, like to put on my wall, because I think we all have those moments where we get into this place of just like disparity, like, dang man, things aren't going the way that I wanted them to go. I'm putting in all this work. I'm pumping all this life into attaining this goal and this dream. And it's just not working out. And then you sit there thinking like, all right, maybe this just isn't what I'm meant to be doing, or maybe it's just not meant for me to achieve greatness, or maybe I'm thinking too big. And in those moments, when those negative words are getting the best of you, that's when you got to sit and meditate and fight those with words. What does the Bible say? God says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. He says that I'm blessed. I'm blessed in the spirit. I'm blessed in the city. Everywhere I go, I am blessed. You have to counteract these negative words with the word of God. And that's what enlightens you and emboldens you and empowers you to keep going despite anything. Daily affirmations. My favorite one is God is my unfailing supply. And large sums of money come to me quickly and effortlessly through grace and through perfect ways. Infinite Spirit, Heavenly Father, open the way for great abundance for me in my life. I am an irresistible magnet for all that belongs to me through divine right. Daily affirmations, you have to say them over and over again. He gave this example in the book. Now, of course, this book was written in the early 1920s, but he was like, go down Fifth Avenue and you see that energy that area attracts. That's the type of attraction that you need in your mind. The things that you think is what's going to be attracted to you. And he said, take that same scenario and go walk in the slums and see that energy that's there. That energy attracts more of that type of energy, unless you're combating word with word. You get what I'm saying? Situation with word. Because nothing is bigger than what you think in your mind. You truly have the power to think your way out of situations if applied correctly. Because your mind is going to constantly give you the ideas that you need. You just have to listen to it. You can't ignore it when that other self kicks in. You have to know that this is my sign. This is my moment. This is what I need to do. I can't ignore it in this moment. I got to sit still. I got to write down what I'm feeling, write down what I'm hearing. And I got to lean into this. I got to make an action plan that is full of intention, And ultimately, that's how you allow hypnotic rhythm to work for you. Hypnotic rhythm is picking up good habits one at a time and then applying those and watching them spread across your life. One thing that I always like to say is that how you are in one place in your life, it reflects how you will be or how you are in others. For instance, if you decide that I'm going to eat healthy, I'm going to exercise, that then translates over to your thinking and your decision making, because you've made small steps in your decision making to eat healthy and to be disciplined in working out and meditating or doing yoga or whatever you find in your extra time to build your body muscle and to keep yourself in shape. Once those decisions are made and once those habits are formed, it becomes easier to make more informed and healthy and wiser decisions across the board in your life, and to take on new habits that will eventually elevate you and elevate your mind and enlighten you and motivate the people around you. And once your habits change, the people you hang around change, because you can't build these good habits and hang around the same people who may not have that same thinking pattern or that same behavior pattern of healthy habits. It's never too late. That's the key of this book. That's the key message of this book. It's never too late to develop good habits and to start again from scratch. Even if you fall back into the old habits every once in a while, there's always another chance to begin again. The key is to keep going and to keep trying and to not let temporary defeat mask itself as or identify as failure in your life. You can get knocked off the course 100 times, but what will set you aside, again, from that 98% is understanding that there's a lesson as well as an opportunity in each setback, because failure doesn't exist. It only manifests itself in your life if you let it. Do not become a victim of the fear of failure, because failure isn't a thing. How you gonna fear something that don't even exist? And if you've noticed or seen these drifting qualities within yourself, all it takes is one step in the right direction. The changing of one habit for it to be life transforming. And once you take that idea of the hypnotic rhythm and reverse it to the positive and in the right direction, the results you see will be life changing. I promise. So there you have it. Let me know what y'all think in the comments, and thank you so much for joining me. If you enjoyed this recap and learned something new, please leave me a comment, like the video, and subscribe, and also turn on your notifications so that you don't miss when I upload more content like this. I appreciate you all for listening. I love you all, and I hope you have a great Sunday.